And we're back with another episode of Lakerholics Spotlight right here on the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every week, twice a week, wherever you get your podcasts, plus also as well Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Of course, you know Joe is always roaming around as Ox1947 at LakersBall.com. Plus, he has a great company if you are in the Southern California area, which you need to support, and that is Simblades. Simblades with a Y.com. Also, as well, our good friends Empire Jeff TV and, of course, John McCallion. Please support those great YouTube channels today by subscribing. And speaking of subscribing, make sure you go ahead and hit the little Joe with the beady eyes. He's watching you. He's always watching you. So go ahead and click on him to go ahead and get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the latest Lakers Fast Break podcast. And last but certainly not least, please go ahead and check out the conversation that's always flowing today at Lakerholics.com. Jamie Sweet, who unfortunately could not be here today. I hope all is well with you, my friend. And I believe he will be with us next week. He is always at 5 things, plus he's always roaming the halls of Lakerholics.com, along with my good friend and fellow host for today. He is the number one Lakers blogger that's out there. It is, of course, LakerTom and LakerTom from Lakerholics.com. Great to have you here, my friend, for another Lakerholics Spotlight. This time I put the spotlight on D'Angelo Russell.
Well, it's good to be here, Gerald. It's always nice to have a Saturday conversation with you about our favorite subject, which is the Lakers.
Absolutely.
D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell is in many ways symbolic of this new season. The Lakers are basically have a roster that's divided into tiers. Up at the top, you've got the superstar tier with LeBron and AD. Then you've got a guy sort of trying to crawl into that sphere, which is, Austin Reeves. And then you've got the second group of people, which includes Russell, Reeves, Hachimura, Vanderbilt, and I'd say Wood, guys that are capable of starting on this team and should have a good chance to start. And then you've got the guys who are logically going to be the backup reserves. These are the Princes, the Christies. And last but not least are the redemption crew, the guys that are looking to be redeemed, the Cam Reddishes and Jackson Hayes and to a certain extent Christian Wood. So it's a fascinating group of players. And probably you highlighted the single player who's probably the most controversial and of all of the players on the team. Theoretically, he should be the fourth best player on the team. I have serious questions as to whether he'll start. I think almost everybody feels that he's probably going to be traded at the deadline. If you start with that assumption, then you have to really start to wonder what you want to do and what will happen in training camp and whether or not point guard is one of the positions that may have a change in training camp as a result of the situation that D'Angelo Russell finds himself in, and the team's desire to have somebody take a big load off of LeBron James as far as playmaking goes. And you got a guy that they just gave a 3-year contract, $33 million to, and Gabe Vincent, who in many ways is maybe the best defender of the candidates to be point guard. So it's an interesting dilemma. And, you'd have to say that it's D'Angelo's job to lose. I think that's the way that the Lakers will go in, just out of respect for the fact that he was the guy who carried them all the way through until we got to the conference finals. He really was a good player. And, many times, the third or fourth best player on the team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in training camp.
It will be. This is a very pivotal year. I've said that repeatedly for D'Angelo Russell. This is the year we find out if he will still be an NBA level starter, if he's better coming off the bench, and if he will be someone that you can take into the playoffs and feel confident he can hold his own in the playoffs. there are major questions on all three of those fronts, and I know that's something that I think a lot of people are weighing in on. I do want to go ahead and speak to you later on about Jovan Buha from The Athletic. He had a recent podcast appearance. In fact, yesterday it aired, and I got a chance to listen to it with his thoughts. I'll run that off to you in a bit. A big shout out to Darren, who says big hi to LakerTom. Darren, one of our biggest and best supporters out there. Truly appreciate it. Going ahead and saying on the super chat. Going to miss chiming in with LakerTom there. D'Lo does play well with AD. I know you're on the road, Darren, so please drive safe. It is always appreciated, everything that you do for us right here at the Lakers Fast Break. Again, says a special hi to LakerTom. So I ask you, my friend, D'Lo in the pick and roll does play well with AD, which is something I think the Lakers need to do a little bit more of, the pick and roll this season. Tom?
Oh, I thought you were asking Darren.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he says,
listen, it's
AD, but I want to make sure that's how they play well, is because they play well off each other in the pick and roll.
Yeah, listen, D'Angelo, up until that disastrous conference finals, D'Angelo was looking an awful lot like the Lakers point guard of the future. And he's a guy who's coming off of a $31 million a year contract, settled for an $18 million contract, gave up his right to demand to not be traded, and has done and said all of the right things. And it's strange that you look back at the 6 games that he played against the Nuggets, and Bruce Brown basically just had his number. And it was a real difficult series, but you're going to discount that for a guy who was an integral part of contributing to the team winning. It's hard to say. I think you have to. The way that I look at it is, I think that he's gone for sure. And why do I say that? I think because they are doing 2 things. They did 2 things that pretty much say that D'Angelo's gone. 3 things, really. The first thing was they negotiated that contract with him that he gave up his no right to not be traded. That was a lot to give up, and there's no reason that the Lakers would have demanded that. That was something that you did not expect that the Lakers to get. So they basically really demanded that in the trade. Second thing is they signed for $33 million in 3 years, Gabe Vincent, who does 2 things better than D'Angelo Russell. He plays defense better than D'Angelo Russell, and he has proven he's a better playoff player than D'Angelo Russell. And the third thing is that we saw Austin Reeves really play his best basketball when he has the ball in his hands, rather than he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And this is a kid who, when you look back at his history, you don't realize that up until his last 2 years in Oklahoma, he played point guard everywhere he played, in high school and AAU, and his first 2 years in college. He's a gunner. He scored 73 points once in an overtime game. But he's really a point guard at heart, and he wants to be the point guard on the Lakers, and the Lakers basically are going to give him an opportunity to see what he can do. So the question is, what do you do when you go into training camp? I don't think anybody has a lock on the starting position at point guard. I think if Gabe Vincent came in and he shot lights out and played terrific defense, the Lakers might say, why? We're probably going to trade D'Lo because he can bring us a Buddy Hield type scorer, or maybe a big man who can defend and help us against Joker. And if he's going to be traded at the middle of the year, why do you want to start him and have to make a shift in how you're going to play? I think there's a good chance that Gabe Vincent will win the starting job because of defense, and because he's a guy I think that they brought in because they trust him in the playoffs. They trust him.
Now, when you say defense, he did have his lowest analytical defensive performance last season.
Yeah, but I think everybody understands that D'Lo's value is his offensive skill set more than his defense. And it doesn't take a lot. The Lakers are going to miss Dennis Schroeder because he was by far their best point of attack defender. And we've seen that teams are going to start mimicking what was done in FIBA and attack Austin Reeves one-on-one. He's going to be the guy that they're going to look to switch to over and over. He'll get a lot of pressure on that side of it, and that's going to take something out of you offensively when you are the target of attack on everybody is at the other end. The Lakers basically, it seems like everybody who's a Laker fan out there is either one of two camps. We're either the best team in the league and we're going to win a championship, or we have a good shot at it, or we're one player away from being that team. And the one player away basically who's going to get traded is going to be D'Angelo Russell, most likely. So if you take that premise to start with, then maybe that does affect what happens in the starting lineup situation in the competition. I'm betting that Vincent is going to end up being our starting point guard. But maybe there's another option there, which is Austin Reeves.
I don't know, putting him in as a point guard, asking him to do that on a regular basis. It's like Devin Booker. Is it just because they can do it?
You're talking about Austin?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Just because both guys can do it doesn't mean you should have them do it. We'll see if that works out. I know they will both play a lot more point this season. I know they will have the ball in their hands a lot more this season, both these players, Booker and Reeves. I just think that it may not be their strongest suit. When it comes,
it's not necessarily a perfect comparison either, because Booker, you almost want Booker shooting rather than you want him passing. Okay.
That's exactly part of the reason why I would not have him as my point guard.
But Reeves is an interesting situation because I think Reeves actually has the potential to be a Booker type scorer on a consistent basis at a high percentage, but he also has the ability to be an excellent point guard for a team that also has other playmakers, secondary playmakers. So you're not totally reliant on the guy. He's not going to get you 9 or 10 assists a game, but he can get you 5 or 6 steady assists a game and probably score maybe close to 20 points a game, if he's got the ball in his hands a lot. Because that's the one thing with Reeves is I'd like to take advantage of the fact that he is so good at drawing fouls and getting to the line that I would like to have him have the ball in his hands more than have him playing off of the ball. I think it's one of the serious concerns that why the Lakers also want him, besides taking a load off of LeBron playmaking wise, why the Lakers want him to have the ball in his hands. He's so crafty, and when he gets into the paint, imagine that if his usage is so low now. Imagine if he really is the starting point guard for the team. And let's say that could, if we traded, for example, let's say Buddy Hield doesn't get traded because they're waiting for the Lakers' first round pick. And we trade for Buddy Hield all of a sudden, and you move that's one of the reasons why Reeves is the guy that you move to point guard, because he opens up a spot for a Buddy Hield or for a kind of Booker type player who can be a big time scorer. And that's somebody that the Lakers need. Hield would be perfect for the Lakers. It's a shame that we don't have anything to give him, because he's the guy that basically teams are not going to leave alone. He's a 3-point shooter. Wherever you put him, you're going to have a defender, and you can play 4-on-4 with a wider open court for the rest of the players. So Austin Reeves, I think, is also in the game as a possibility as ending up as a starting point guard. Let's say that, here's an example for you. Let's say that all of these wonderful things that we keep seeing of Max Christie, he comes into camp and he blows everybody away. He looks like a starter and a great defender. And what do we need? We need a great starter and defender in the backcourt. That's one of our weaknesses. And all of a sudden, then you think of the Reeves and Christie backcourt could be a real surprise and could be dynamite. I mean, something like that could happen. Who knows? I mean, it's a big leap, but man, everything I've seen from Max Christie for a 20-year-old is pretty promising.
Once again, it is the Lakers Fast Break. It is Lakerholics Spotlight. It is on D'Angelo Russell, plus what's going on with the Lakers. We're just a few short days until training camp on October the 3rd. So make sure you're staying with us right here at the Lakers Fast Break. It is LakerTom. Please go ahead and support him, Jamie Sweet, and the hard work that they do each and every week at Lakerholics.com. The conversation's always flowing there. Plus, LakerTom has some articles I want to talk about, including his latest thoughts on the starting lineups, which I'll have him go ahead and elaborate, but also as well an earlier article that he did on possible trades, which you know is always fun for us here at the Lakers Fast Break, which is always a great source of conversation indeed. Big shout out to Joshua Dietz on Facebook. Truly appreciate you joining us. But a thing I want to ask you, Tom, when it comes to what we're seeing with the Lakers, a recent podcast appearance by the Athletics' Jovan Buha, the Lakers insider. He shed some light on his feelings towards the Lakers heading into training camp, where he feels the Lakers are about a 53-win team, but he does not feel that come playoff time, they are at the level of a Boston, Milwaukee, Phoenix, or Denver. He does not feel that the Lakers, as currently constructed, are at that level. He assumes that a trade with the involving either D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hashimura, some other piece will be done to
Those are
go
the only
ahead.
those are the only two pieces that have enough
Yes.
salary to be tradable.
Yes. So I'm asking, your thoughts on that. He also thought that Christian Wood signing was not a very good one or very sound one that's going to be effective for the Lakers. He is much more into Bismack Biyombo,
Yeah.
which I say beyond no, because of his 37% free throw shooting. It's funny because no one has wanted to pick him up as of yet, to my knowledge. So I think there's just absolutely, you could talk about, as he did, about how he had the second, behind Triple J, the highest percentage as far as the defensive rim protection and all that. And that's great and all. But the fact is, he's still sitting out there on the street because the fact that he's just a super minus on the offensive end. So, your thoughts, hearing Jovan Buha? I know you've been following his work at the Athletic,
Mhm.
and absolutely have faith in his opinion on a lot of things. Your thoughts on his insights so far? The Lakers are, as currently constructed, are not quite there yet as a championship level team.
I tend to agree with him on the point about. I think the Lakers are a 50-plus win team, but I think that they're still missing something, and it's really in the backcourt. They still don't have anybody to go up against the best players in the backcourt of the other teams. When they've got guys who potentially can do that. I mean, we don't have a big backcourt scorer. Reeves maybe can get you 30 points a couple of times a year, but he's not the guy you go out there and get you 25 points every single night. And I think that what the Lakers are eventually going to do is move Reeves to point guard, and they're going to trade D'Angelo Russell, and they're going to trade him for a shooting guard. They need scoring. They need basically spacing, and I think that's also. I have to say that I do really respect and think that Buha has probably the best insights to the Lakers, as well as just being a terrific journalist and also a great writer. His articles are very easy to read, and I think anybody who doesn't pay $1 a month for the Athletic just to read Jovan Buha, if you're a Lakers fan, is a fool, because that's a stupid. It's $1 a month is well worth it. I don't think that. See, I think I disagree with him on Christian Wood, because I think Wood's going to be a big payoff. Wood does.
He was talking about, and also he was talking about how this is looking more good on the regular season, and how the playoffs, the team is not built for a long run in the playoffs. That's where he was really relying on. I think that's what he was saying with D'Angelo, with Christian. with the pieces in play, with the fact that
Well,
he also sees Rui as a starter.
Look at the backcourts that you're going to face in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to go up there with, let's say we don't, like a lot of Laker fans want to do. They don't want to do anything. D'Lo and Reeves. Russell and Reeves is our backcourt. Okay, so you go with Russell and Reeves, and you're going against the teams you're going to go against. So who are you going to go against? I mean, think of the duos that those guys are going to face. Mm-hmm. You're immediately giving up probably 10, 15 points a game to almost every other backcourt pair that you face in the playoff teams in the West. They need a scorer. They need more punch. They need a scorer who can, and the spot to fit him in. Really, the only spot to fit him in, to be honest, is because they can't find a center that's going to score like that now. Could be Wood is a chance for that, but generally you can't. So you're looking at a shooting guard. You're looking at being able to find somebody that they can plug in who can really give them that offensive lift that I think Wood will give them. But the thing about the Lakers now is that when you get in, they're great for the regular season because they're going to get better because they're young. They're young and they have a coaching staff that is player or development oriented. So that team is going to be much better by the end of the year. Every player on the team, other than LeBron and AD, is a 20-year-old player. They're in their 20s. So they're all going to get a little bit better as the team goes along. And if we can stay healthy, we have a chance to win. I don't think we'll be the favorites, though, because we don't have that clutch veteran. The one thing that they need is a DeRozan, a Bogdanovich, a guy that they can give the ball to who can get his shot, period, at the end of the game, or Kobe. They don't have anybody who can do that. That's not AD. That's not LeBron. That's probably not even Reeves. Maybe it could be a Christie. Maybe it could be a Reddish. Maybe it could be a Wood. But they don't have that guy now. If they can develop him during the year, then maybe they could avoid a trade. But this is a guard-driven league, and our guards aren't good enough. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest problem facing us, in my opinion, as we go for a championship. We need to upgrade the backcourt, and you don't want to get rid of Reeves, so that means goodbye, D'Lo.
Well, it's going to mean probably D'Lo and Rui Hachimura. Rui.
No, there's a lot of guys for $20 million that you can get back. You can get Buddy Hield. You can get Miles Turner.
Buddy Hield is a defensive liability. Great shooter, but defensive liability. This team.
You can be a defensive liability on my team anytime.
Well, again,
trying to get him right now. He'll start for every one of those teams.
So, okay, we'll get to Buddy Hield in a sec. But again, one of the issues that he also had, which I do agree with, is that the defensive side of the ball, which with all the inclusions of some really good veterans, which I will give everybody that on that. The problem is, though, the defense, which was such a cornerstone after the trade deadline for the Lakers, I think got a little bit worse, as he agrees, might have gotten a little bit on the worse side as far as that's concerned.
Well,
which could be a problem.
Substitute offensive players into the lineup in order to try to win.
But you saw in the playoffs, when it came to certain matchups, the Lakers were not able to go ahead and defend as well as they should or could. So that's part of the problem right there.
Yeah, it's the same thing as the situation with Reeves. With D'Lo, that you're taking a look at 6 games, and you don't want to completely say that if you were to play that series over again, that it would come out exactly the same way. I don't think at all it was. Those games were a lot closer than people remember. And a couple of
they lost by an average of 6 points.
Yeah, so I'm saying don't overreact to the fact that they had like 4 guys that had among the very best playoff versus regular season performances that we've ever seen in the playoffs, including the top 2 by their top 2 players, Jokic and Murray. So they just completely outperformed how they played during the year, and give them credit. They walked away and won it. But if we played them 10 times, I don't think the Lakers would have a problem winning half of them. Maybe 6 out of 10. So you don't throw everything away. And I know that that's contradictory to what I'm saying with Russell, but I think the decision is already made with Russell. I think it's worry about the playoffs. It's worry about what he can do when it's really clutch time. I don't think that they want to take a chance that he can't do it. And like you said, Gerald, if they have to make a trade, I don't think they want to trade Rui. The only way they trade Rui is if Rui does not, if the Rui we get is a lot more like the Rui was at Washington than the Rui that we've seen so far with the Lakers.
Well, no, yes and no. Remember, the Rui in the playoffs is different than the Rui that with the Lakers that he went as we got him.
Yeah, he was great in the playoffs. He was great in the playoffs for the Washington Wizards.
He actually got a coach DMP late in the season because of his performance, which was the impetus for him to go ahead and redesign himself and his game and be able to play as well as he did in the playoffs.
You think that was true? I remember the rumors of all that stuff.
That is true. Sitting him down at that point in the season, I think, was a great move for the Lakers, for him, and by Darvin Ham, because obviously you saw the effects of that. Now that he's trimmed down,
I've never seen Rui be the kind of. I mean, he struck me as a player who played hard and cared. Right from the first moment he became a Laker, I never saw him as a guy who, might be a little bit of a recalcitrant that you needed to sit down.
Well, you just, again, it was performance based. He just wasn't giving you what you needed consistently.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is maybe it was just a situation where Darvin didn't want to slap him, just wanted to remind him that, hey, if you want to start, you got to really play hard. I don't think it's a situation where, hey, you lost your role in the rotation, buddy. Get with it. I think it was just maybe just a warning to him that, either way, I'm glad he took it. And I love seeing Rui spending a time with Phil Handy. Man, there can't be anything more impressive for the
lost
Lakers.
10 to 15 pounds, which
obviously getting ready to play small forward. One of Rui's strengths is he can play up as a 5 against Joker or down as a 3 as he did in the playoffs. And the Lakers, frankly, I think that's the starting lineup that's going to happen first.
And that's what he envisioned. Jovan Buha is Rui at the 3, which I, in recent days, since we had our starting lineup conversation, I'm kind of leaning, not kind of leaning because I want to, but kind of leaning because that's probably the way it's looking because of the weight loss by Rui. But if that's the case,
but if Vando was really he was 6'8" last summer. Now this summer he says he's 6'11".
All I say is with Vando, okay, if Vando does not start, it's truly puzzling to me. Why would you commit those years for him? Because of the fact he is a better fit as a starter. Him coming off the bench, playing against second team guys. Playing against second team guys, and the fact he cannot be traded this year. It's just, or this season, because
that was a plan, as we talked about, that was a planned move by both the player and the team to take pressure off.
But it's puzzling for me, Tom, if this is someone you don't envision as your 5th starter, then him coming off the bench is just not as effective against playing his style of defense as being one of the better, and if not the best defender on the Lakers, in a team that actually kind of got worse defensively in the summer. Got better offensively, but worse defensively. And that's, what Jovan says, what I've said now for months. I've kind of hinted that at months for telling everybody about, look at the defensive statistics about all the guys that you brought in. They're not as great defensively, but they're much better offensively. So I think that's probably, it's like a give and take on that. So we'll see. But again, signing Vando to that contract told me at that time that I thought that the Lakers have big plans for him, but I'm not sure now because
but are they starting plans?
Yeah, that's the problem. Why did you sign him if you're not going to start him?
But long term, because lots of reasons. Number one is a tradable asset. He's a guy on a contract that's below market now. Team friendly contracts are guys who can play and not just be filler that they have to cut is really important. Secondly, depth is important. I think they got a competition between the two of those guys. One of those two guys are both from last year's team. There's 4 guys that got a chance to start. Those 2 guys and the other 2 bigs. I think that we're going to choose one of those 2 guys to start.
It's just hard seeing
Or
Vanderbilt.
One of those 2 guys will start.
Rui starting is going to be fine, but Rui is also someone that's more poised that you can start him. He can get you something. Coming off the bench, he can get you something. Vando is not quite cut and dry.
It's a better defender.
Vando, it's not quite cut and dry. Vando, if he comes off the bench, because again, he'll be playing against a lot of second team guys. It just does not quite work as well as if it doesn't start. But then again,
that's why I predict that Vando will start, and then they'll switch to Rui, and then they'll switch to Hayes, and finally at the end
the Lakers will probably be settled on any type of they won't be as bad as last year when they led the league in starting lineups, but there still will be a lot of mixing.
This year there'll be some progression through it that they're not going to start any of the new guys. They're going to reward the guys that are there. Rui or Vando will get that starting job. And then the question is, Hayes and Wood will both have to show somehow that they really can be that second guy, because there'll be pressure on them all season for them to play 2 bigs. And, I don't think AD has forgotten about that request, that he wants to play fewer minutes at the 5. Yeah. And the Lakers want to accommodate him on it. That's why they got Hayes. That's why they got Wood. I think that there's a chance down the road that they'll have to switch to one of those guys.
Once again, it is the Lakerholics Spotlight. It is LakerTom from Lakerholics.com. Go ahead and check out his latest articles today. We'll go ahead and discuss that before we leave out on the show, because there's much discussion on that. But also here today, a good man indeed. He's the madman from Toronto. He did get out of Toronto traffic to stop on by in front of a sunny window. It is, of course, the Black Mamba himself, Sean Grice. And Sean, great to have you here, my friend. Always great to have you part as an original Lakerholic right there for you. So I ask you, my friend, Jovan Buha had an appearance on the Dunked On podcast recently where he stated that the Lakers are going to be for him about a 53-win team, but he did not see them in as currently constructed, unless it comes without a trade, that they are in the same league or ballpark in the playoffs, when it comes to playoffs, as a Milwaukee, Boston, Phoenix, and also as well, of course, Denver Nuggets. Your thoughts on this, my friend? Agree to disagree? I mean, the Lakers have a skilled roster. I'm not going to dissuade anybody on that. They have a lot of talent. They have a deep roster of a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things. The Lakers do have some issues and concerns that I have pointed out, you have pointed out, and Joe pointed out over the course of the past few months that they still need to address. Your thoughts on exactly what the Lakers are at this point in time, about a little over a week away from training camp.
So in Buha's mind, there's a tier of 4 teams. That's Milwaukee, Boston, Denver, and Phoenix, and then we're kind of in tier 2.
Puts us right there. He says we're a team that has a good chance. Calls us like a second round. I guess it was said intimated on the show, like a second round exit or something like that. So
we're underestimating LeBron and AD.
Yeah. If you're gonna have to really
don't tell that to me. Tell that to the Athletic.
The Athletic's gonna have to really sell me on why Phoenix is a tier 1 team and we're not, considering we went further than they did. Hold on.
Let me finish this. He says that the Lakers are, for them, Phoenix and Denver are the 2 worst matchups for them in the playoffs. So, which was his reasoning on that. So,
okay.
Let you know.
Well, Denver's kind of proven that point, and I'll give you that point.
Fair enough.
Phoenix?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I still think
Phoenix, though.
I know.
I think you may be right there at Phoenix.
If all 3 of those guys are hitting, how many teams can slow them down?
Yeah, just we know at some point DeAndre Ayton's gonna.
But that's a big if.
And Gerald, you've mentioned this before, and so is pretty much everybody else on the panel. At some point, DeAndre Ayton's just going to weigh them down.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Alan, he was also saying as far as Woods, D'Lo. He was talking about Gabe Vincent. He said there were certain individuals there that are unsure. More Woods and more D'Lo on their possible performance in the playoffs. D'Angelo we talked about as far as because he's the spotlight today. However great he is going to be for you or solid he's going to be for you in the regular season, this is a proving point for him whether he can continue to be an NBA level starting point guard this season. I think it's pretty much for me. I've said that before, but the playoffs are always a big issue because his defense has gotten exploited. And he agreed with me that, D'Angelo didn't have a great playoffs. He had moments in those first and second rounds, quarters or periods of 5 minutes where he really blew up. And then the rest of the time, it was kind of touch and go. I just think as well that that's something you have to take an issue with. But also as well, will D'Angelo Russell be on the roster come February?
Yeah, that's wow. That's like two separate questions. The latter, I think, is no. I think at some point, it's obvious. It's obvious. We've got a lot of nice depth there, but that depth in particular, I think you could sacrifice your offensive versatility to upgrade if you get somebody, I don't know, like a JV or some dynamite 3-and-D wing. I think if you could upgrade there, Gerald, yeah, I think you use D'Angelo Russell. As far as the former, I mean, yeah, he got beat up pretty bad, but it was a matchup that Denver was able to take advantage of. I mean, he didn't look out of place in the Memphis series, and Memphis did their darndest to try and exploit him as well.
There were times,
there were times with Golden State too, Gerald, but not to the level of Denver. The Lakers and D'Lo were both able to adjust to those two series, but he's got it's no secret he's got work to do. We know that, and
there were times where he was just sat down for Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder played
for
in
obvious
a lot of games.
reasons. Yeah.
So, but with D'Angelo,
Schroeder might be undersized, and he might be a little over aggressive, but he's very pesky. Yes. He's very pesky. That never changes.
It's so funny because who you talk to, they either miss him and they dearly and they think it's a vital piece gone from the Lakers, and then with others they feel that, oh man, thank God he's gone. So
well, with Dennis, I think it was we all wanted better performances, but his attitude was the same regardless of whether we were winning or losing. He was trying to help the team as best he thought. I think D'Lo's is in a similar vein, Gerald. It's just you're right. There are certain attitudes that Dennis has on defense that D'Lo just doesn't seem to have that same attitude.
Well, it's just his style of play. I think LakerTom and Sean. I just think, and I'll bring it back to you, LakerTom. It's just D'Lo's style of play on both the offensive and defensive end. Everything is methodical with him as he weaves in and out. As far as you've seen that, it's a style that JHS, if he's going to be any type of player in the league, is going to have to emulate, to be quite honest with you, because he just doesn't have the blow by speed.
Right.
He gets a lot of fouls in his favor, but that's just because a lot of arm movement. So it's really tough to block his shot.
You make a really valid comparison there, Gerald, just simply because they're players that don't have speed themselves, and they substituted change of speed, as their way of getting by people. And it's funny, there are times where you see Reeves can play that same game. He can play that game where he's basically using change of speed rather than speed, but he also can use speed. He has that ability to get to the basket. I've been really impressed with his ball handling. So D'Lo's, I don't have D'Lo starting. I have him coming off the bench.
I think he'll start. Not that I want him to start per se,
Yeah,
but I just think that
we'll see.
because, like
I
you
think
talked
the
about
reasons for him
loyalty,
I think the reasons for him not to start, that's what really bothers me,
I just think it's the loyalty of he was here, he went through the playoffs run, yada
Mhm.
yada yada. He's gonna
Yeah,
he's gonna
and
go to
listen,
training camp
about
starting.
all this stuff, as I said 3 weeks ago, I still feel the same way. I really don't care who starts. I think that we've got so many players that you could plug in there. There's at least 4 or 5
Oh yeah,
combinations that you could put.
Vincent will get a lot of clutch time. If Woods is hot, you may see him get some crunch time. Rui or Vando. Vando, the thing is, we obviously give him a limitation on minutes because of his offensive limitations. If Rui's hot, you're obviously going to play him extended minutes beyond 25, maybe even 30, even more.
I really seriously think that I seriously think there's a chance that Vando will start.
Well, I had said Vando will start.
Loyalty and getting the best defense out there. The one thing about that lineup with him and with Gabe coming in is you have the best defender at all five positions on the starting lineup, and if that's not Darvin Ham's style, we've been mistaken about the boy. He's going to make decisions that are really defensive oriented. He's a smart coach in that sense, and I don't, if they're close, I don't think he'll have a hesitation of it because he's also plugged in with Rob on what they're going to do. It's not Rob going to make the decision. It's Rob and Darwin are going to make the decision on what to do with D'Lo. And if they've already decided they're going to trade him, you got 2 options. Either you put a guy in that you think could maybe play the whole year at that position, so you don't have to make a change, or you put D'Lo in there so that you can raise his trade value. His trade value is not going to count. It's going to be the pick that you're including that's going to get back anything that's going to be better than D'Lo. You're not going to swap D'Lo for something equal or better. You're going to have to give him something. And and it's a shame for D'Angelo because if he had not had that horrible playoff, that terrible conference finals, if he'd come through and won a couple of those games and it was 2-2, would have been a whole different story,
Yeah.
Some guys, what it comes down to really, and the Lakers will make the same gut decision that I've sort of made in my mind, which is, do you trust that guy going forward or not? And if you don't trust him, you better start giving the ball to the guys that you do trust, and you move on. You don't keep throwing money down that money pit.
Well, I just think when it comes to the Lakers, Tom, I just think they have there's LeBron and AD and Austin Reeves. Mm-hmm. After that, you have all these pieces, Sean, and I'm bringing it back to you, my friend. All these pieces that are good in ways and not so good in others. They're not perfect pieces. They're like, for instance, 3 players you're going to count on going forward, and you have about 12 others that just, they're talented. They're NBA quality players, but they just may not have exactly everything that you need and that can help you at every single point in time in the game. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. Again, it's a really deep roster. It's got a lot of great players that can come in and make contributions in games during the regular season. But when it matters the most, do the Lakers as currently constructed have what it needs to go ahead and make a good push in the playoffs all the way to the finals? Or do you believe what Jovan Buha said from The Athletic, where he thinks that the Lakers, as currently constructed, just don't have enough when it comes to playoff time?
Well, let me add to Gerald's question also too, Sean. What do you think we're missing? If we're missing something, if we don't have enough to be a champion, what are we missing? What do we need to get? What do we need to get for D'Lo and trade?
Yeah. So the first part of the question there, Gerald, I think it remains to be seen. However, like you, I'm a little skeptical that right now, that, like you said, the whole of the depth stays intact. I think there's just, like you said, Gerald, there's too many vicissitudes, variables, ladies and gentlemen, that's another word, that could happen that kind of gum
telling me everybody's not going to come out and be a star like we're expecting, Sean? Jeez.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Bummer, man.
I know, man. I know, but yeah. So I actually think that. See, Gerald, part of me thinks that Darvin Ham can't really go back to the well with his 3-guard lineup because there's so much depth on this team, and because he's got to figure out who plays with LeBron, AD, and probably Austin. So I don't think he's going to have time to really experiment with that 3-guard lineup like he did last year. So that kind of changes the formula a little bit, because then that means you're not heavily reliant on guard play. And to the second question for Tom, I think we need to get like a hell of a 3-and-D wing. If we got a hell of a 3-and-D wing for that'd be nice. For D'Lo, I think that changes the calculus a little bit for everybody, because now that's an extra physical wing you have that you could throw at people, and it's like you said, Tom.
Be sweet if Reddish could be that wing.
Exactly. It's not just Vando now. You have potentially a couple guys like this player, potentially OG, and a Rui that you could throw out at their 2 best perimeter players, and LeBron can hang back a little bit, Joe. But for now, it's really incumbent upon them to just try and find a 5-man lineup that works consistently. And
that's going to be the problem.
And and I'm with you and Tom. I don't really care who it is. But for God's sakes, the great Kazoo could come down and be the 4 we need.
Shout out the great
last
Kazoo.
Last year we really didn't have a choice, You just had to pray that Westbrook would hold up,
Oh my God! Plus Damian Jones, plus Mo Bamba.
I like all of them, Give me Christie starting. I don't have a problem with that guy who came into Cam and won the starting job. Wouldn't that be something else? Or Reddish coming in and being a 3-and-D wing that we need. I know. I think positives that could happen.
Yeah, and Tom,
of course, every one of those positives is a wild card that can also go the other direction.
Exactly. You brought up that's a really good point too, Tom. Because like you and Gerald were saying, it doesn't matter how good Demoyod shoots. You still need another wing defender. It doesn't matter how good he's shooting.
Right.
And I want to say this, like Kurt, I got much love for you as one of our best fans for the Lakers Fast Break and all the things that you do to support all of my shows. I truly appreciate it. But D'Angelo as an all-star, yes, he was a one-time all-star with Brooklyn. I think everything, all the stars, pardon the pun, had to align correctly for him to get on that team. And things fell in place on that team. That was a gutsy team that went Brooklyn as far as back to the playoffs. Really just a team that was kind of like
Gerald,
a Rocky type team from an underdog standpoint.
Exactly.
So, but let me just finish this. Finish this. But I know that again, he had a terrible Denver series, but in both of those previous series, he had moments. And that's all he had. He was not consistent in those first 2 rounds. We even said you could look at our shows when we covered those playoff games, at the post games for all of them. Tom, Magic Man, he was just not consistent. He would give you that burst that got you over the top. Like, there was a couple games early in the third quarter where he took over for a 5-minute stretch or a 5-possession stretch where he took over and got the Lakers really going in a time when they needed the most. But again, it's an in and out type of scenario where he couldn't give you consistently what he needs to give you. And maybe that's what the Lakers are looking for, is someone at the guard position or the wing position. Because I know there's been some talk in our chat. We should look for guards. We should look for wings. We should look for guards. Just someone, Tom and Sean, and I'll go back to you, Tom, on this, someone that can provide consistency. Austin Reeves is who he is. He's an undrafted kid. He's got some limitations. We saw that in FIBA.
I don't know. Does he? Do you really think he does?
His one-on-one defense
that's the question you got to ask yourself now.
His isolation.
When you were describing
his isolation defense, as we saw in the FIBA World Cup, is substandard.
Very chaotic.
His offense and creativity is well above average.
Right.
So,
but let me back up a second. That's another reason why you play him at point guard, because point guards generally have a whole different defensive mentality than anybody else on the offense because of what the load that they carry from the point. When you were describing D'Lo's moments that he'd have in the games and how important those were, and the failure is the lack of consistency in being able to do that, what kept coming back to me is how that was a perfect description of what you saw from Austin Reeves, not only in the playoffs, but also when you elevated him and playing on the world stage. And in a FIBA tournament, he was playing the same way. He was making periods in games, critical periods in every game where
he was much more consistent on the offensive end than
he is exactly what the Lakers need as a point guard, because he can get you the points and he can control the game. And his defense as a point guard is still underrated. He's getting picked on because it's a different game. The FIBA game is different than the NBA game.
So you're going to have him out on even faster guards.
Teams are not going to be pounding the ball down low, posting guys up in the NBA. They don't.
But it's a lot of you and I both know it's a lot of isolation, and isolation defense is the only part of Austin's game that is really a weakness that stands out. And I'm just going to say that clearly, because there were guys that are not even NBA level players during FIBA that were blown.
You're comparing defense with other point guards. What other point guards you got?
But if you want,
you're only two or three of them that play defense. Drew Holiday. You got Trae Young, you got Steph Curry, you got all sorts of guys that.
No, but I'm saying, Tom, but now you're talking about putting Austin at the one, and if you're talking about putting Austin at the one or having him play more time at the one, again, creativity, shooting, you could always see just a great future for him on that end, Sean and Tom. But again, his athleticism was part of the reason why he wasn't drafted. And the fact is, he could only do so much on that part of his game, and he could try, positional defense, things of that nature. But Tom, when it comes to isolationism, when he's out on an island out there against some of the best in the NBA, it's going to be something where it's going to make us very nervous.
Yeah, but there's every team has one or two players in the starting lineup, not even mentioning the roster, who can, in certain matchups, be isolated and taken advantage of. Part of your strategy as a coach is figuring out how you prevent that from happening. And the problem in the NBA is that where Reeves was getting killed in a FIBA tournament was guys posting him up and getting the ball where they caught the ball 5 feet away from the basket. And basically he's not going to be able to guard a guy in that situation. He generally, up until then, had shown a good ability to strip the ball from guys in that situation when they turn to shoot and so forth. In the NBA, you don't get enough points per possession to be sending your guard down low and trying to throw it down to beat a 6'5" guard in the paint. He's not going to have that same type of problems. And then the other part of it too is that has nothing to do with whether you pay him a point guard or shooting guard. In fact, you probably need a better defender at shooting guard than you do at point guard in most situations. It just depends it's also screwy now because point guards are some of the best scorers today are point guards. It's basically having the ball in your hands. So it's like a variation of LeBron James that brought to the game where it isn't just the little small point guard that you used to have in the old days. The Lakers are obviously moving toward Austin Reeves playing the point. And I think that's the best position for him. It's probably his best position up until his last 2 years in Oklahoma. It's the position he played his entire life. He basically is a point guard in his heart. That's how he looks at the game. And that's why he's successful when he gives him the ball and he gets a guy and puts his defender in jail. He's able to have control of the situation there. And that's basically exactly what you want on a point guard, making sure that you get the easiest shot on every single possession down the court. And if you're going to do that with him, then that's a response and also a solution to the D'Angelo Russell situation.
Again, with me, I just want to say that it's just defensively, this team may have taken a step back, but offensively, they've actually made themselves a lot better. And I think that, as far as from a half court offense standpoint, Sean, I think they have made themselves considerably better. Go ahead, Tom. You wanted to say?
Yeah, no, I think this is the question still, because I am not ignoring what you're saying.
Mhm.
If the Lakers move Reeves to point guard, the question is, what do you want for your shooting guard? Do you want a Buddy Hield or do you want a Lou Dort? Do you want a guy who can outscore whoever else you're going to be placing, or do you want a guy who can stop those guys from doing that? I made a trade proposal earlier where I traded off Reeves for a guy who I thought could be that player. And I don't think I've ever had the worst response from everybody on the trade, because nobody wanted to trade off.
And that's
Reeves.
the thing. Austin Reeves
Yeah.
right now, Alan, I know he said some things about Austin Reeves. He is not fully
Well,
convinced
he's
the number 3. And I
untouchable
don't
in the
blame him.
mind of every Laker fan.
But Sean, Austin Reeves, when it comes to him, it seems like the Lakers are infatuated with him. And that's my impression, is that they have a really, really broad future mapped out for him. Not just what they committed to him in the offseason with the great contract that they signed him to, Sean, but it just seems like the inference that I get is that they have great plans for Austin Reeves. And yes, we've talked about his defense, obviously, as far as being somewhat of concern. Team defensively, him fighting through screens. I've seen him cut off passing lanes. Excellent at doing that. Isolation 101, which happens again, crunch time, or it also as well in the playoffs. Those are things that the Lakers are going to have to go ahead and scheme around as far as it's concerned, because they'll be hunting him at certain times if D'Lo's not there, and he becomes the one guy that they want to go ahead and pick on. But offensively, he does so many great things because he has so many skills and attributes that you can go ahead and take. Plus the fact, if he can shoot 40% again, because he shot 39.8%, I believe is what his 3-point shooting or thereabouts. Well, no, I meant as far as overall in the season, he was like 39.8. But yeah, if he hits 40% from behind the arc, again, that alleviates a lot of things offensively. The Lakers, I think, will have to be in more of a, we need to score more and outscore more than you during the course of the season. And I think the team is built at this point in time to do just that.
Yeah, 100%, Gerald. I mean, for years and years, Fish was often the black sheep defensively for us, because somebody had to try and stay in front of these twitchy, athletic guards that the West had. A young Russ, a young Tony Parker, and Fish got hell for it a lot of times, right, Gerald? Well, he can't stay in front of them. Well, who the hell can? Can you?
Bibby, Bibby, when he got traded over to
Bibby,
Sacramento.
yes.
Yeah, he was just
switch everything. Stop trying to stay in front of these guys.
Mike
Bibby. Who the hell can?
Yeah, Mike Bibby made the Lakers look stupid on several occasions. Unfortunately,
yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
he
was
did.
just, and he was not. He was a good, but he was not an all-star level point guard, and never, but he was somebody that, again, when playing in the right conditions, when there's, as far as isolation, when they're playing as far as, pointing out as far as who they want to hunt, he made the Lakers at times really look bad.
He did. Gerald, I think it's incumbent to remember that I know Buha's been saying that about Gabe Vincent. I've heard that before. It's a sticking point that I don't really agree with or like. The dude has played in 40 playoff games the past 2 seasons, and Eric Spoelstra had been his head coach. You would think that alone, Gerald, would be enough to satisfy curious minds who think that maybe he doesn't have the juice or the stuff or the it to play that way, but obviously does, because Spo kept going back to him and Riles kept going back to him. I think he's just quicker on his feet than D'Lo defensively. D'Lo at times has happy feet. We've seen Gabe Vincent play, Gerald. While Gabe Vincent can get beat one-on-one, his feet are constantly moving, and he definitely does try and either avert you from going like point to point or out to the wings.
And I know he gives Well, I know he gives you better effort on defense.
Yes.
But as I pointed out, remember we did a profile, and please check it out on the channel. And I'll get to you in a second, Nick and Tom. We showed on profile the fact that we got him after his worst defensive analytical performance. All these guys that we brought in are some of their worst defensive analytical performances statistically. Now, he has been known as a hard-nosed, big-time effort player, another undrafted success story for the Miami.
Yeah, but everybody's defensive numbers have been going up the last 3 or 4 years.
I understand, but then the guys we brought in are higher than what the Lakers
but that's
usually
just
are
because
giving
they
up.
came from teams that had higher ratings.
Miami?
He was still you cannot
But
compare.
it brings you no concern at all.
Compare defensive ratings between different teams. All that really counts, all that really matters.
I thought they all played in the same league. Forgive me.
Yeah, they all play in the same league, but they all don't play with the same teammates. It's a big difference.
That's true. But Miami, which was considered a hard-nosed defensive team for years, that doesn't bring you
overrated. They're an overrated team led by an overrated defensive player of the year last year.
But Gerald, I think although the and we've gone over it, it needs to be said that yes, the defensive rating on the guys coming in may be a bit higher than everyone would like, but their attitudes are all quite the same. There's no quit in any of them.
No, I'm never.
Gabe Vincent doesn't quit defensively,
and no one would ever say he would.
Yeah, and for all his faults offensively, and there's a plethora. Gerald, Cam Reddish finishes on defense. Jackson Hayes finishes on defense. Taurean Prince, you know what, Gerald? He's fine. He's fine as like a smaller 3, maybe a less athletic 4. He's fine defensively too. It's not as if he's a sieve either. But you're right. There's somebody needs to be better. Like you have to be better. These
guys. So let's hope Darvin Ham, who created again one of the best schemes defensively after the trade deadline, can do that again with these guys and hopefully collectively be better forward. But also here today, good man indeed. It is Laker Nick returning to us once again. Great to have you here on Lakerholics Spotlight, my friend. Your thoughts on the conversation? I know when you pop in, you always have something you desperately need to have said.
Thanks, Gerald. Salute, Magic Man, and Tom. It's always great to hear your thoughts. I've been following the articles, Tom, and I was able to catch a bit of the discussion before jumping on. Tom, you said a little earlier that you actually see Gabe Vincent starting. Is that right?
Yeah, I do.
So
well, let me preface that, Nick.
Okay.
When I started to write that article, I actually had that paragraph in the introduction where I basically had D'Lo starting. And he was my picture of the 4 guys below that were the 4 guys that didn't change, included D'Lo. And then as I started going through every section, it's when I got to Rui, and then when I finally started getting to do the 2 big men, Hayes and Wood, it just struck me that there's no way that they want to have D'Lo playing defense with these 2 guys in the lineup. And eventually they're going to move to 2 bigs. I think that that's going to happen, regardless of the LeBron situation. I mean, I know AD wants to play the 4 and LeBron needs to play the 4. But in the end, this is AD's team, not LeBron's anymore. So I think eventually I just see that they're going to go to 2 bigs. And I think that when they look at the situation with 2 bigs, they do not want, they need as much spacing as possible, and they need as much defense as possible. And I think that if it's spacing and defense that you want in the playoffs, which is really what we're talking about, I think Gabe Vincent is a better possibility than D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tom, and I mostly agree. And actually, just for the audience and just so everyone's on the same page, I assume that as far as the Lakers, that you don't see being a Laker anymore come February. I assume you put D'Lo in that category. Is there anybody else that you put in that category?
No.
So you don't put Rui in that category?
I don't, because you know what it is, Rui. If they have to trade Rui, if they can bring back a $20 million guy with just D'Lo, and there's a lot of good $20 million guys that would help us. Okay, making anywhere in that range. But if you need to bring back, if you want to put two of them together, you want to put Rui in there, and he's the only other player worth trading. You put Rui in there, you're looking at $40 million guys. You're looking at Zach LaVine. You're looking at Trae Young. You're looking at those type of moves, which I'm not real happy with. I'd rather keep Rui. The only reason I say that we would trade Rui is if he didn't work out, if he turned out not to be what we thought we've gotten from everything we saw last year. So
Well, that's
no,
what I'm going to ask. I mean,
I see trading D'Lo as a given, and it's just a question then of what's he worth when the trade deadline comes around. And here's the interesting thing. As everybody knows, I watch all of the trade websites and all of the
really, I would never have noticed that at LakerTom on Twitter /X.
Trader Tom, right? So anyway, I've been actually surprised at how much interest and how little they're asking for. How little they're really, I mean, there have been, I would say 75% of the D'Lo trades that I see are all trades I'd consider, with a little tweaking on them. So I think D'Lo and a pick can really get us something this year.
So
maybe it'll be D'Lo in 2 seconds.
So let me ask you this, Laker Nick. I'll bring you back in here, and then I'll get it back to Sean. And I want to ask you this,
Thanks,
Laker Nick. When it comes to trading and availability, I mean, are you convinced D'Angelo is the only guy that would be out there on the trade market come February? Because I'm convinced if Rui, Rui is the big question mark. Which Rui are you going to get? Are you going to get the inconsistent guy that you saw for 4 seasons, Sean, in Washington? Or are you going to get the guy that we saw as a
Cam Reddish
tremendous
and Jackson Hayes version of Rui is what Gerald's talking about.
Well, basically, which Rui are you going to get? Are you going to get the Rui for 4 weeks, or are you going to get the Rui for 4 years, or somewhere in the middle, which I'm thinking is going to be where
or the Rui from the playoffs.
That's what I said. That's what I just said. The Rui for 4 weeks or the Rui for 4 years. Which Rui are we going to get? I think it's somewhere in the middle, which will make him, which will probably put him as a trade target come February, Nick.
Gerald.
What can we get for $40 million? Realistically, $40 million and a pick.
Yeah, that's a good question, Tom, and Gerald. I think definitely, even immediately once we learned about D'Angelo Russell's extension or his contract back on June 30th, we all said that, or I think it was maybe the first week of July, but we all said that it was a very tradable contract, and we all saw that his long-term future in the Lakers was probably the least assured of all the contracts that the Lakers ended up getting this summer. And so he's definitely on the trading block, so to speak. He has the player option for the second year, which I actually like because it would motivate him to actually perform. And I think that D'Lo has been in the league for quite a while. He understands that this is a business. He understands that he is on the knife's edge, so to speak, to basically play for the Lakers for the next 2, 3, 4 months and then find another place for him. That said, I think with other players like Rui Hachimura and possibly others on the roster, they're auditioning, and it depends how long of a runway Ham is going to give them. It depends, the amount of meaningful minutes that those players are going to get. But by no means, I actually think that it wouldn't just be D'Angelo Russell that wouldn't be a Laker come February. I think that this roster might change, 2, 3, maybe 4 players come the trade deadline. And it all depends on how the Lakers are performing. If we see that defense is the issue, you might see a defensive specialist be the target. If we see shooting be an issue, we might see like LakerTom has promoted for quite some time, maybe Buddy Hield at some point. And you know, these are all questions that are going to have to be answered in the coming months. I'm actually just curious to see like how long of a runway Darvin Ham gives, you know, D'Lo in the starting lineup, for example. Is it 10 games? Is it 20 games? If the Lakers are winning, maybe he just maintains, you know, a starting lineup that's I don't know, Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, Vando, LeBron, and AD, or Hachimura in place of Vando. I'm not sure, but these are definitely questions that Ham needs to be thinking about, and he's probably having some sleepless nights right now.
I just think when it comes down to it, Nick, and really great to have you here. Great thoughts right there. Sean, and I'll bring it to you next. I just really think, Sean, and what Nick was saying on that, when it comes to Darvin Ham, it's just the fact that this roster has a lot of good pieces, but no, you know, after LeBron, AD, and Austin Reeves, again, because where the team just really sees those three at this point in time as their big three, it's just the pieces around them. They're not perfect fits. And in doing so, and in having that, it's going to be touch and go to see at which times they will go ahead and be able to perform for the Lakers, and how Ham, it's so important for Darvin Ham to be able to utilize them properly at the correct times this season. I think regular season wise, I don't think it's find it as much of an issue. It's come playoff times, what team we're going to roll out there.
Yeah, 100%, Gerald. I mean, Michael Malone had to deal with this problem in Denver for about a good 3 seasons before this past one, where he actually saw a healthy team and he could figure out what rotations were going to work in the playoffs. And obviously, it proved eventful for him, Gerald, because he was able to win a championship. I think the same thing is true with Darvin Ham. It's a great point you bring up. He needs time to actually see the 5-man rotation on the court working, so we can think about maybe implementing that into the playoffs, health dependent. But you're right, Gerald. He actually has to see it. It's not enough to see it working in practice or in theory, right? We actually have to have tangible evidence on paper and on tape that it's working properly. And Gerald, I'll add this: if D'Lo comes out guns a blazing, Gerald, don't be boneheaded. Don't be boneheaded like the Los Angeles Clippers. Don't trade away the NBA's best 3-point shooter. Don't be a bonehead. If D'Angelo Russell is playing that well, you keep him. You keep him, because obviously things are working well. Does everybody remember what the Clippers got for the best 3-point shooter in the league?
Well, no, go ahead, my friend.
They had to give up 3 second-round picks, Gerald, and Luke Kennard, and John Wall for Eric Gordon, who they didn't even re-sign.
Yeah, which we saw. Well, again, they would have been paid close to $100 million.
Fair enough.
Would you have paid $100 million in taxes for Eric Gordon?
I would have explained to my owner, who's got more money than 10 gods put together, Mr. Ballmer, we have the league's best 3-point shooter in the league. We don't know how healthy Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are going to be for the playoffs, so we need him. But what do those morons do, Gerald? All right, we'll just trade the most efficient.
$100 million.
We'll just trade the most efficient shooter in the league, and we'll tell them that it was a good move.
As Kurt says, that's $100 million that could be used on toilets for the new arena.
Right.
But I will say, though, it is the Lakerholics Spotlight. Truly appreciate you joining us once again. Thanks so much. I've got LakerTom, Laker Nick, and Magic Man. Before LakerTom, we get to you closing out our show, talking about your great articles. The one on Medium, which I'm going to discuss right now. The one you have on Lakerholics.com about all the various starting lineups that you're throwing out there. But the one that I got to me earlier this week that you posted, and I'm going to get Laker Nick in on this one, my friend. That is the 3 blockbuster trades LakerTom has to make the Lakers championship favorites. Okay, and of course, Laker Nick, of course, the first one is Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. That's a given. He's been saying that now for almost 14 months now. So that one's going to
longer than that. It's been
longer than that. Okay. Okay, fair enough. But it's the ones after that I think are kind of interesting, and it gets a little bit more interesting from there. And that is the second trade that he had, Laker Nick. And I'll hit you up, Sean, with the third one. The second trade he has is for OG Anunoby out of Toronto. Your thoughts on a possible trade and looking at him as a possible trade target?
Well, yeah, Gerald and Tom, I actually do think that I know that you get some flack from Twitter and from the fan base whenever you want to trade, especially Austin Reeves. He seems
this would be
untouchable.
OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr. Just want to make that correction.
Yeah, so Gerald, I actually don't as you know, and I know that again, Tom sometimes gets flack for maybe being too
Does he?
imaginative about the
I
about
would
the
never
trades. But I actually would not rule a trade like that out of the realm of possibility, just given the fact that the Lakers themselves, as Tom knows and everybody knows, has players under contract that are under very favorable contracts, right? You have people like Reeves, Vando, D'Lo that are solid players, and again, on good value contracts. I'll add Rui on there as well. And so the possibility of the Lakers making a quote unquote blockbuster trade like an OG Anunoby plus Gary Trent Jr., I think it sounds maybe fine on paper. The issue, though, is that with a trade like that, and as Tom, I'm sure he's aware, is that you would certainly have to sacrifice depth in order to make a blockbuster trade like that. And
you're actually counting. He was actually counting on Cam Reddish or Max Christie to step up to the plate because he has Russell, Hashimura, and Prince heading to Toronto.
Yeah, I mean,
for 2 trade that would listen. The whole trade really is. This is a trade where the Lakers are not only giving you filler in the case of D'Lo, but in the case of Prince and Rui, you're giving pretty good value. You're getting players who actually are worth something, and you're basically giving them your 2029 pick, which could be protected or unprotected, and a pick swap for 2028 and 2030. So you're really giving them 3 first-round picks, which is what they wanted for Anunoby alone. So these are trades that, on the surface of them, would be probably considered by most people to be too favorable to the Lakers. This particular trade would be, because they have asked for probably 3 picks alone for Anunoby and 1 pick for Trent Jr. So they want 4 draft picks.
Yeah, and subject to the caveat, right, that Christie may evolve this season to be a very, very solid player, and I know that Tom is counting on that, and his trade hypothetical would be subject to that possibility.
They'd ask for Christie, and in reality, they probably asked for Christie, and they probably asked for
right, and I would just and that's exactly right, Tom. And I was just going to say, right now, as things stand, right, if a team wants to do a blockbuster trade with the Lakers, whether that be Toronto or any other team, they're going to want Reeves, and I think that's going to be the target for other teams that may want to be poaching Reeves, because again, I think he's evolved and he's on a very favorable contract, and so
they would like Christie too, but Reeves at $12 million a year for 4 years. That's a steal.
Yeah, no, and I'm not sure if Pelinka does that trade. I mean, he needs to be getting something back that is, maybe not superstar level, but close to it.
Yeah,
which OG Anunoby would be probably. He's again someone that is just in that right below tier, but someone who could provide us a 2-way opportunity. I think is someone that that's actually I would not if you were to get off as far as the parameters, which you see in the Medium article, which I posted, if you see those parameters that he talked about, I would say the Lakers would be able to, if they were able to get away with it, would be a better team for it. But Magic Man,
yep.
the thing I've got for you, and you can comment when I finished. You can comment on the previous trade as well. Obviously, from
This
Toronto.
is based on a medical exam.
Okay.
Sean, I want you to know
The trade I have an issue
a
with.
positive medical exam by the toughest doctors we've got.
The trade that I think is probably one of the worst LakerTom trades I've seen.
Oh no, it's actually a great trade. I love it.
Jonathan Isaac and Gary Harris for D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hashimura. Your thoughts on that, my friend? I just think that LakerTom.
No picks included.
Well,
Okay,
no, it doesn't matter. No picks included, but you'd have to be smoking a lot of dope to actually go ahead and say yes to that one if you're the Lakers. But go ahead, Magic Man.
Gary Harris Jr. So he's got
43%, 43% on 4.5 threes a game.
Yeah,
Gary Harris is
good defender.
Gary Harris. He can't even get a solid minutes on Orlando.
Not what he used to be.
29 years old.
Not what he used to be. That's kind of the nice way of putting it for Gary Harris Jr.
Yeah.
Isaac, how many injuries has he had? Major ones?
Fairly effective. Harris
fits in well with the team. He knows how to rehab.
Before that second knee injury, I had some high hopes for Jonathan Isaac because it seemed like
have you seen his 11 game, the highlights from the 11 games?
Yeah, I mean
the guy is, you know what he really is? He's the 25-year-old version of 30-year-old Anthony Davis.
That's a bold statement, sir.
He is. I mean, when you watch him play defense and you watch him shoot from outside and you watch him play inside, man, imagining him on the Lakers healthy, and that's why I said you'd have to. How
come he's not even starting on his own team?
Well, yeah, but look at what they did. They signed him to a huge contract, Gerald, and then
a huge contract.
And basically, he hasn't played for 2.5 years. And they have loaded up with all sorts of talent in the front court, where he sits he's like 4th or 5th on the rotation for every position he plays, center and power forward. So he's going to get traded. They've just run out of time, and they got too good a team. They got too many good players with Banchero and Franz. You know, they've got a great team, a great young team, and they still got picks to use. So yes. If he was really healthy, he would be Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., and Gary Harris, and this guy.
Yeah, the
defense for the six. He's the
defensive numbers he has. Tom has a point. The defensive numbers he's put up, Gerald, are solid. Yes, he's had. They've been solid. They've been solid. Yeah.
No trade. No picks. No picks, man. No picks. Yeah, you're giving up Rui.
Best-selling author.
You're giving up Rui for Harris, and you get to throw in. You get a possible all-star player.
He's got. I hope he sold more books than he's
got. 25 years old. At 25 years old.
Well, first of all, Jonathan Isaac would hate it because he would be traded to LA, where it's he with his anti-woke status, and also the fact that he has a very conservative clothing. Yeah, his clothing athletic line, which is supposed to be anti-woke and all that. He'll hate being in the middle of California, so he'll be miserable already.
If I knew he was anti-woke. I mean, anti-woke really says stupid.
Well, go check him out on Fox, but he won't really like being here. So I'm just saying with him and Gary Harris. Okay, let's go into Gary Harris as far as it's concerned.
They both shot over 40% from three. Gary Harris shot 43%.
And that's great. But there's a reason why they both have not been able to go ahead and be the guys on their team.
You're not going to be able to trade D'Angelo Russell for Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo.
it's just
Gerald's got a point. I mean, Denver drafted Jamal Murray, and the second they did, well, we don't really need Gary Harris Jr. anymore.
Yeah, Gary Harris, 43%.
Lots of guys have that happen, I mean,
Gary Harris is shooting 43% from behind the arc. Why is he not playing major minutes for them? Or why do they always talk about Orlando that their worst problem is their backcourt as far as what they still haven't shored up?
Well, they have more backcourt players that are ahead of him at this point in time.
Why is that if he shoots 43% from three?
Well,
where's the issue?
That's the only reason he started when he came back from injury, is that he shot 43%. But he doesn't fit in. They're not a contending team, Gerald. It's a whole different mentality.
Well, they want to be now.
No, they're not ready to contend. Come on, be kidding yourself.
They want to be a playoff or at least a play-in team. They want to see progress.
They're hoping to be a play-in team, but they're not a contending team. And their timeline of their young stars doesn't fit Gary Harris. And the injury situation and the bad taste in their mouth and their young studs in the front court don't fit Jonathan Isaac, so that's the reason they'd make a trade where they wouldn't demand a first-round pick. And they'll take D'Lo off your hands, and they'll be glad to get Rui, who will be a great fit for them.
So, Magic Man, I ask you this, my friend. You see the parameters on these trades. You go to the Medium article, and you see, of course, the standard LakerTom, Buddy Hield, Miles Turner trade. You see the OG Anunoby trade with Gary Trent Jr., and you see the Jonathan Isaac also as well, throwing in their Gary Harris trade. Your thoughts on this, my friend? Obviously, the Lakers will probably start to need someone around the trade deadline that will help them get into that tier that hopefully Jovan Buha will actually put them at post-trade deadline. Your thoughts on exactly what the Lakers might be interested in or start to seek out as far as a trade is concerned?
Yeah, you know what, Gerald? I don't think Rob Pelinka wants to expand the permutations of this.
I think he wants to see what this roster can do first.
That's correct. Yeah,
including D'Lo.
I think so. I think they're set on it right now. I don't think they're going to make a move until we're well within 25 games.
And whatever you say about D'Lo as far as a playoff performer or one way or the other, defense, offense, he is a very good regular season performer and plays a lot of games.
It's hard. The problem with D'Lo is that it's hard to find somebody better than him that you can go out and get. It simply is. You line up 30 point guards from 30 teams, and he's going to be, there's going to be 15 to 20 point guards that are unavailable. He's going to be in there.
I would say,
I would find somebody better.
I would say that's fair. He's probably in the 18 to
23 range.
As far as point guard. Gerald, ultimately, same with I hope and cross my fingers that when Pelinka ultimately does decide if and when to pull the cork on D'Lo with the Lakers.
Now you told me he was still driving.
I said Joe's driving to Vegas. That's what I said.
It doesn't look like he's been driving very far. He came back. But go ahead, finish your statement, Magic.
Thank you for that, Gerald. Thank you for making it about.
I love it. Was just the timing, Magic Man. Oh, Joe's driving to Vegas.
Yeah. Well, maybe I should keep my big mouth shut then.
No, you're good. You're good, my friend. Remember, you're the encyclopedia. You're the one that gets all the compliments, my friend.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that as well. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I hope. If that happens, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the Kennard deal. The Lakers give up 2 or 3 second rounders. Maybe you have to give up a Jackson Hayes or Cam Reddish to make the money work, but you're not depleting your roster from that depth, which is extremely important. To bank on a maybe, because it would be a maybe. But you're going to upgrade. So if you're going to upgrade, you might as well do it. I just don't think it's necessary to deplete the roster to do it. I could see avenues where they don't have to do that.
I think if you're going to able to get OG without the picks, obviously you would take that. But I think, like Chom says, you're going to have to give up picks for him. But that's probably the one of the three that I would go at, because I think I think that the latest rumors from that Sham Sharania post out there, the latest info that he got, that the Buddy Hield extension is with Indiana, that they're going to try and move him sooner rather than later. At least that was the intention that was alluded to.
Depends whether they can get a first. Depends whether they can get a first for him.
We'll see what happens. But also here today, good man indeed. He is not yet, although he will be traveling to Las Vegas to go ahead and check out the Steelers game versus the Raiders. I don't think we'll be doing any live stream. We may do a YouTube short or take a pick or two. It is Joe Soro when he gets out here. Joe, great to have you here. I'm packing up my things and ready to head out of town as we speak. No, I'm kidding. But your thoughts, my friend, when it comes to
are you staying with Gerald, Joe?
No, I'm not. I don't stay at people's houses usually.
Well, he's got a palatial estate there.
I know.
I'm not scared. I'm not
one
scared.
One of the ADUs probably is available.
It's funny. I get that question a lot when I go visit people. Hey, stay with me. Stay with me. I'm like, yeah. Don't worry about me. I got it. I like to have my own place to lounge. I don't like being
Vegas.
If it's certain family members in Arizona, sometimes I'm okay with that. But generally, friends, they have wives and they have children and dogs and distractions. So I need a place to go to not have to worry about their wives, their kids, and their dogs. I like to have space and not worry about things. But
Joe likes singing that Dixie Chicks song, "Wide Open Spaces."
That's a little too slow for me, but I guess the lyrics maybe, yes. So what have we been talking here about? Shape-shifting the team again?
That's just, again, that's the last part of the show, was we were talking about one of LakerTom's latest articles.
Who would you trade Austin Reeves for as the subject of the podcast?
We traded Austin for a legit third superstar. That's who you trade him for.
So give me a list of 5 people you'd trade up for Austin Reeves.
Austin Reeves' first name came up was Damian Lillard. That would be traded.
He made $60 million the last 2 years of that contract.
Karl Anthony Towns, because I think he's going to be traded soon. So Karl Anthony Towns, you have Dame Lillard. Those would be the 2 superstars that first came to my attention. If Giannis demanded a trade, obviously, which I don't think he's going to need to do that. Jason Tatum, which I don't think he's going to do that either. And then number 5, I don't know. I have no idea who the 5th would be. Those are the 4 that came to my mind. So yeah, it's still very, very, after the debacle of the Westbrook trade, I really honestly don't think the Lakers are ever going to play that game again.
I hope not, but
yeah, it would have to be
just like a crack addict, man. You can't trust him. You cannot trust the Lakers. You can't trust the Lakers around a third superstar. It's just
they would have to fail at what they have right now for them to likely go after it.
They probably drink enough alcohol to make a dumb decision like that. There's a point where you really realize it.
So let me ask this. Okay, Alan put in the chat.
Trae Young, Trae Young would be the other one. Yes.
So let me ask you this. Okay, you guys, Trae Young's name's been thrown around there. And Laker Nick, I want to ask you a question here in a second. I'll bring it back to Joe as well. Trae Young's name has been thrown around there a lot. I'm not so sold on it, because you talk about a player, that high volume shooter, mixed in with LeBron, who's a high volume shooter, mixed in with AD, who's a high volume shooter, and
somebody's not going to get enough shots.
Yeah, somebody's not. And plus, also Trae Young is what Magic Man has said is a sieve on defense.
Is that like a turnstile?
That is like a turnstile. So I ask you, is that the best?
It's worse because turnstiles are mechanical, so they could actually stop working And
So I ask you, I mean, Trae Young is not that thing, but Laker Nick, let me ask you this though. When it comes to what Jovan Buha said on the Dunked On podcast, let me bring it back to where we were originally about an hour ago. Jovan Buha said on the Dunked On podcast, and he's the Athletics Laker beat writer. He said that he sees the Lakers as a notch below the top 4 teams in the NBA. Your thoughts on that, and then I'll hit to Joe as well.
Yeah, Gerald. Obviously, and salute Joe. Safe travels to Vegas if you're driving or flying. Yeah, I think that Buha's comment makes sense if you assume that LeBron is going to continue to decline and that AD is continue to be, unavailable or inconsistent. I know that we've been clamoring here at the LFB and just the fan base in general for AD to get more consistent play, for him to avoid injuries, for him to at least play 60, 65 games. It's already been a couple of years since he's made an all-star team. And so all that said, this team's success fundamentally depends on LeBron's and AD's availability. And so if they're not available, then they are going to be below those top 4 teams, unfortunately. And so now with the inclusion of people like Wood, the emergence of Reeves, hopefully, role players like Vincent, Prince, Hachimura, Vando, and maybe the development of Christie, this could help take some load off LeBron and AD, especially LeBron, since he was averaging close to 30 points a game again last season. And I've said this before, but if LeBron could be at 25 or below points per game, and we're still winning, then that's a very, very good sign. So again, I think that it is accurate to say that the Lakers are below the top 4 teams in the West, assuming that LeBron and AD are not
He said the
available.
top 4 teams in the NBA. He
Oh,
just
and
meant
okay.
as they're currently constructed, he sees them as a notch below. Let's say Lakers have great health, still going into, he sees them as a 53 win team, but going into the playoffs, he sees them as what would be a second round exit.
Yeah, if they have great health, I would have to disagree. I think it's very hard to bet against a player like LeBron, AD. They've already gotten it done before, and I think in even harder circumstances. I'll say this on air. I'm a strong believer that the quote unquote bubble championship was actually harder than a regular championship. They
Agreed.
were literally playing across the country, isolated, away from family, no fans
Plus
in the
home court
stadium.
advantage for the whole
Yeah, no,
playoffs.
exactly, Tom. No home court advantage, and for people to belittle that championship under very, very stressful conditions, I don't think that's fair. And so ultimately, I think that LeBron and AD could get it done, assuming they're in great health. No, I don't agree with Buha that the Lakers would be below the top 4 teams, assuming again that LeBron and AD are healthy.
Joe, I mean, you heard the thoughts from Laker Nick on that. Do you concur with him, or do you agree more with Jovan Buha's statements that the Lakers, as fully constructed right now, are a good team, really good team, but not quite enough to meet to the top 4 teams: Boston, Milwaukee, Phoenix, and Denver is what he had as the top 4 teams
That
in the
makes
NBA.
no sense. That makes no sense. They have a better team right now than they had last year. And Boston is the only team that might have upgraded, but we won't know until Porzingis goes through a season. The Lakers would have won the championship if not for Denver. Had they faced Miami, Boston, Milwaukee, they would have beaten those teams with last year's team as it was constructed. And now you have more depth. Now you have a better likely chemistry and cohesiveness because you actually have an off season, a training camp, preseason, and 82 games to acclimate yourself to going after it this time. The only negative I would say is you have a year older LeBron, yes. But if LeBron plays the way he played last year, then it's a much better team. And we're looking at Milwaukee having more pressure to win now since they kind of bowed out the way they did. Boston's going to have a little bit more pressure because they hope that they had upgraded from what they had last year. And then, of course, Denver's going to have to come in as the hunted instead of the hunter. And you know how that is. It's going to be saying the Lakers are not going to make it or make it is a 50-50 thing, right? So one of us is going to be wrong and one of us is going to be right.
I certainly hope you're right.
And just hope it's just somebody saying, well, the Lakers aren't going to win this year. No, the Lakers are going to win this year. And we're going to find out in about.
Well, the question is, do we need to make a trade to win?
No.
Okay.
We don't make a trade right now until we have to. And
See,
if we have to make a trade.
Buha feels the Lakers need to make a trade to win. I feel the Lakers need to make a trade to win.
You can't make a trade right now based off of what they've done. You're not even giving this a shot. That's my question: is why would you?
It's like watching an episode of Bob Ross and seeing the canvas completely filled at the beginning. It's not like that. It's a blank canvas right now.
Yeah, you're trading for what? Okay, now what exactly are you trading? Like, what is it that would have changed the last month that said, you know what?
Well, you couldn't trade people at a particular point in time. You couldn't trade D'Lo. He's untradeable at that point in time. So you obviously re-signed him. You got him to waive his no trade extension so that he can basically be traded come January 15th.
If you're constantly in the mode of trading, are you really focused on winning?
I think being constantly in the mode of trading is a prerequisite for winning.
Maybe for one player, maybe as we've been talking about, maybe having the.
I don't think we're going to have. Nick feels that we're going to have 3 or 4 players, and I think that's possible. But I think that, and then it would be a mega trade. But I think that he's absolutely right in that the Lakers have players who could be put together to get Giannis if they wanted to get him. They would have to give up a lot. They'd have to give up Reeves and Hachimura and Vanderbilt, but they can put together
number ones. They don't have enough number ones to give him.
They can put together 3 guaranteed number ones between by putting a pick swap on every side of the 20.
At least 4. You need at least 4.
That Rudy Gobert trade, Tom, that just ruined everything.
You need at least 4. You need at least 4.
You don't think Oklahoma City could throw out some number ones? You don't think,
as I said before, I think Oklahoma City,
New Orleans.
Do you think that Oklahoma City should? I mean, they could offer 10 picks for Giannis. Who's going to turn them down?
I wouldn't.
10 picks for Giannis?
Plus their young players? Yeah, give me 3 young players and 10 first-round draft picks. There you go. Absolutely. Yes.
Giannis will be traded. He's not going to sign as a free agent. He'll be traded because that's how every star is moved today. Nobody signs as a free agent after LeBron was the last big free agent to sign, I'll bet.
And he technically wasn't a free agent signing because he was signed and traded by the Cleveland Cavaliers, which
right.
Dave Gilbert said he would never do, and he had to because he had no choice. Yeah, Tom, I think the last
teams that stars want to go to don't have money, don't have cap space.
I think you're right, Tom, because the last free agent to really kind of make a seismic move was Durant.
Right.
That's the last one who basically decided on his own where he was going to go. But you're right. All these guys, because you sign, you don't know how long your athletic prime is. You sign the deal, you get the guaranteed money, and then you ask for a trade
first, and then figure out where you.
I don't know why this has been backwards for so long in that league, where guys would just ask for a trade before they actually got it. But now I guess they're actually listening to representation, Cheryl, because now they're signing that extension and then asking to be moved out.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, what's happened when you set a rule that the team that owns you can sign you for more than any other team? Of course you're gonna. Well,
because everybody saw the colossal and I know we've had people, experts on here as well, say, well, James Harden and the Philadelphia 76ers did have to come to an arrangement. He gave up. Boo. poo, Gerald. Come on. Harden has made colossal mistakes at each go around, and everybody saw what the smart guy did, Anthony Davis. Do you know what AD did? Took the guaranteed money, signed his name on the contract. Life's good. Lakers have treated me fairly. I think I've given them all I can, and there you go. That's an example, Gerald. That's the example guys are following. It's not Harden. It's Anthony Davis.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, great conversation by everyone involved. Truly appreciate everyone out there in the best Lakers chat room. It's out there at Lakers Fast Break, and everyone here on the panel. Great show today. LakerTom, I'll let you close it out, my friend, with the articles that you're working on, including your latest, which you can find right now at Lakerholics.com.
Thanks, Gerald. I think I'm intrigued by the prospect of Austin Reeves playing point guard.
Yes,
So
you are.
I've started writing an article on that about 6 articles ago, and it's sort of evolved. It started, when I was watching him perform so well in the FIBA tournament and such. So it's an interesting development for the Lakers, and I think we're going to see some major changes in how the Lakers look on the court. As I said before, I've never been in a situation as long as I've been a Laker fan where I really haven't cared who started, where there's 4 or 5 different ways that Darvin Ham can go, where I'll be a happy camper. So I'm looking forward to training camp starting, and every single tweet that comes out and every single interview that's there. We'll be watching all of them. And if you want to keep up with us, join us on Lakerholics.com.
There you go. Indeed. Once again, it is Lakerholics Spotlight. Please go ahead and check out LakerTom and Jamie Sweet. Big shout out to you, Jamie Sweet, at Lakerholics.com. We have got some great shows lined up for you next week. We've got another great set of conversations. Sean has worked extremely hard behind the scenes. I want to give him some major props out there. He has done some major work as far as connections. Want to go ahead and mention to everybody that on the 25th, we've got Joe Mullinax for the Memphis Grizzlies talking about them. On the 26th, we've got Chris Hine talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Also as well, on the 27th, we've got Brendan Nunez talking the Sacramento Kings. And on the 28th, not one, but 2 great shows with Cool McCain on the Denver Nuggets and the Golden State Warriors with Rich True. So that's also including any Lakers shows we might do. Might do one tomorrow as well, because you know what? The Lakers are getting ready to go ahead and get into training camps. There's a lot of questions that are going to be answered in the not too distant future. So we'll go ahead and make sure we lay it out for you. But hopefully everyone out there will have a great Lakers weekend. Looking forward to it. Joe says he'll meet up with me tomorrow in Vegas. Will he do so? We might post a short on that, so you never know. Absolutely. It's up to him. But good luck to his Steelers tomorrow here in Vegas. We'll see what happens indeed. Sorry, Sean. I know you're a Raiders fan. So one of these days there's got to be a Steelers-Raiders thing here in Vegas. You guys both got to come in for that. We'll see.
Yeah, Noel, Gerald, you're right. The likeliest scenario is that I'm the one that's Sorrow on Sunday, not Joe Sorrow.
Has the Steelers won yet?
Not yet.
Nick, great to have you here. Go ahead, my friend. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that Sean is he's a poet, and that was beautiful.
Absolutely. He's also an encyclopedia. That's
exactly.
what I'm thinking about nicknaming him Britannica. There you go. Absolutely. So,
Brit, let's go to Brit.
Yeah, let's go to Brit indeed. But
either that or Wikipedia. That would work too.
There you go. Wikipedia, Grice.
Yeah, nobody other than old people are going to remember what Britannica was.
Or World Book. I had a set of World Book at my house.
Yeah.
World Book encyclopedias, yes, from A to Z. My gosh, outdated instantly as soon as you opened it.
Along with your Kirby vacuum.
Tell me about that.
It lasted longer than that Encarta.
Yes, you're Tom, you're dating us both. That's not actually very good for us, indeed. But once again, it is Bloodhound. Go Patriots, 0-2 and counting. Well, you guys are going to be watching football, but we'll see what we can do for you tomorrow. But we've got a great week up ahead. A lot of great conversations. All the latest news and info on the Lakers. We got it here. Joe Soros heading to Vegas. What will happen? We'll find out, but go ahead and catch Lakerholics.com. LakerTom is doing it for you each and every time out. Right there is the #1 Lakers blogger, along with Jamie Sweet at Lakerholics.com. So for Laker Nick, Magic Man Sean Grice, Joe Soro, aka Ox1947 from Simblades, Simblades with a Y.com, and LakersBall.com, and LakerTom. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Go ahead and check out my other shows, Inside Sports Fantasy Football and the Pop Culture Cosmos, while you're waiting for us to come back for another great part of the Lakers weekend right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. I feel so peaceful when I hear this theme song.